This is a recording of topic 14-2, sums and products. Our objective today is to find two numbers that have a given sum and product. So our essential question is, how can I find two numbers that have a given sum and product? Before we answer that question, let's review in our Bell work. We are multiplying, and so we are going to first distribute. This means take the number that is on the outside of the parentheses and multiply everything on the inside by that number, putting a plus sign in between them. So we'll take the 2, multiply it by 4x, put a plus sign, then we'll take 2 and multiply it by 3. We have another set of parentheses with a number out front, so we'll take that number is -3. We're still adding, so we'll have a -3 times x squared, and then a -3, so plus a -3 times a -5. Once we distribute, we're going to multiply these numbers now. So 2 times 4x gives us an 8x, plus 2 times 3 is 6, plus -3 times x squared is -3x squared, and then plus -3 times -5 is a +15. So we actually multiply the numbers. Last thing that we're going to do is to combine like terms. So when we combine like terms, we're going to start with the variable that has the highest exponent. That is our x squared. I have a -3x squared. There's no other x squared, so we're going to write -3x squared. Our next variable with the highest exponent is the 8x. There are no other 8 or no other x's, so we're just going to put plus 8x. It's plus because the 8 is positive. Last, we're going to combine our numbers. 6 plus 15 is 21. So now we have multiplied and simplified that expression. We're going to do the same thing with 2, except instead of one number in front of the parentheses, we now have two numbers inside the parentheses being multiplied by two numbers inside another set of parentheses. So we're going to take the first number and multiply it and distribute it to inside the second parenthesis. So we'll take 6x, multiply it times 2x. We're going to add that to 6x times 3. Now we're going to take the second number inside the parenthesis, that's a -1, and multiply our second parenthesis by that number. So we have -1 times 2x plus -1 times 3. So first step was to distribute. Second step, let's multiply. 6x times 2x, we'll do 6 times 2 is 12, x times x is x squared. Plus 6x times 3, 6 times 3 is 18, and we left with an x. Plus -1 times 2x, that's a -2x. Plus -1 times 3 is a -3. Now we're going to combine like terms. I look at my x squares. There's no other x squares. We write 12x squared. Let's look at our x's. We have a positive 18x and a -2x. So 18x minus 2x gives us a positive 16x. And last, we have our number, -3. It's at the end. There's nothing to add or subtract from it, so it's just written. So now, let's figure out how can we find two numbers that have a given sum and a product. Our first example is we want to find the two numbers that add up to 1 and multiply to -12. So our sum is what it adds up to. It needs to add up to 1. Our product is what it means to multiply to. So it needs to multiply to -12. We're looking for two numbers. I'm going to do a factor tree to determine two numbers that will multiply to be a -12. So -12, one of those numbers must be positive, the other one must be negative in order to get a negative number. Because a negative times a positive will give us a negative number. So I'm going to look at -1 times a positive 12. The other part of this is that my sum needs to be a positive 1. So when I look at my sum, I'm going to add -1 plus a positive 12. It comes out to be a positive 11. So although we get a positive number, it's not the positive 1 that we need. So we're going to go on to -2. -2 times a positive 6. If I add the sums together, -2 plus 6 gives us a positive 4. -3 plus a positive 4. Look at the sum. -3 plus a positive 4 equals a positive 1. We have the two numbers, -3 and +4, that will give us the correct product and sum. Our next example, we want to find two numbers that will add to be 15 and multiply to be 36. So again, we're going to start with the product. So we need to find the factors of the product. And then add them together and see if we get the sum. So starting with 36, the product is positive. That means both numbers should be positive because positive times a positive gives us a positive number, or both could be negative. Negative times a negative will also give us a positive. The helpful thing that's going to help us out is looking at our sum. Our sum is positive. So that means in order for the sum to be positive, I need to have a positive number times or plus a positive number in order to get a positive number. If I do a negative plus a negative, it will give me a negative number. So both of my numbers need to be positive. So now we can start off. I'll start with 1. 1 times 36, but that sum comes out to be 37. Doesn't work for us. I'll go to 2. 2 times 18 gives us 36. That sum then comes out to be 20. Still not the 15 I'm looking for. We'll go to 3. 3 goes into 36 12 times. So let's look at the sum. That sum comes out to be 15. That's what we want. We have our two numbers, 3 and 12. You will notice that I tend to go in an orderly fashion, starting with 1, then going to 2, then going to 3. I did the same thing up here, except they were negative. Some of you are going to be able to come up with these factors without having to follow this little process. And if you're able to do that, that is wonderful and great. If you are having trouble, however, coming up with the factors of the product, then we're going to use the calculator. So our question is, how can you use your calculator to find the two numbers that add to the first and multiply to the second number? So our first thing was we need to find the factors of the product. I want you to go ahead and cross through the Y2. I don't think we need it. Okay, so this first part is going to help us find the factors of the product. So the way we're going to do that is, let's do our last example. We want to find two numbers that will add up to be 0 and multiply to be negative 64. So I need two numbers that are going to multiply to be negative 64. I need the factors of negative 64. Some of you will be able to come up with that off the top of your head, but if not, we're going to use the calculator in order to help you out. So if I'm going to use the calculator, I'm going to go to Y1, and I'll type in the product. It says put in the product. In this case is negative 64, and then we're going to divide it by X. Once you get that in, we're going to hit the second button and then the graph button, and then this will bring up a table. So we're going to actually do that on the calculator, so get your calculator out. Put the calculator, let's turn on. You'll see I already have it in there. So we typed in negative 64 divided by X. Next, we're going to hit second and then graph. So what you see in this table are all the factors of negative 64. This is all the numbers that will multiply to give you negative 64. So the first column we have a 1, second column we have a negative 64. So positive 1, negative 64, those are two factors, but when I add them together, that sum does not equal 0. So these are not my factors I'm looking for. Then the next one we have are 2 and negative 32. Again, this sum, if I add it together, comes out to be negative 30. That's not 0. That doesn't work. I'll look at 3, and when you look at 3, you'll notice that 3 multiplies times some decimal. We're not interested in using numbers with decimals, so we'll skip 3. We'll look at 4, and 4 times a negative 16. But when we add that together, we get a negative 12. Still not the 0. So look at 5. It's 5 times 12.8, a negative 12.8. Again, don't want decimals. We'll overlook it. 6 multiplies times a decimal. Not 7 multiplies times a decimal. Now I have 8. So we have 8 and negative 8. And sure enough, when we do that sum, it does come out to be 0. These are the two numbers that will multiply to give me negative 64 and add to give me 0. So I've shown you how you can use your calculator to come up with the factors of the product if you are unable to come up with them all on your own. So now's your chance to write your summary by answering the question. Our question was, how can I find two numbers that have a given sum and product? I want you to look back over your notes and say, what were the steps that we used in order to find those two numbers? This concludes topic 14.2.